lock the rear. Now we lock the front. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and this is the 2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak. I lied a little bit, it's actually 2021 Ford Bronco Wildtrak, but the options, the pricing, the everything is more or less the same between 2021 and 2022. Now, this is not the first time I have driven a Ford Bronco. I drove a 2021 Big Bend that was a two-door stick shift, 2.3 liter, much more basic, still off-road focused toward the end of last year. I'll link that right up here. However, this is the first time I've gotten to spend a whole week with one. So this is the fully loaded Wildtrak edition. This is the top trim level, more or less, until they do the Bronco Raptor, which they have announced it is coming out at some point. Till then, this is kind of the top dog. So let's take a look around both the outside and inside of this Bronco Wildtrak, and then we'll get on the road and see how this handles as far as day-to-day driving, highway driving, and then we'll get it off-road, of course, because to have one of these for a week and not actually do anything with it would be criminal. So that's what we're gonna do. Before we get too far into this, please take a second, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We so appreciate your support. And now let's talk about the Bronco. All right, so first up, what is this 2021-2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak? Like I said, it's a 21. The 22s are basically the same trucks. The Wildtrak is gonna be one of your most off-road focused trims until we get to the Bronco Raptor, which is not here yet. The Wildtrak gives you the Sasquatch package as standard. You can get that package on pretty much any trim of Bronco, but if you get the Wildtrak, it's going to be standard. So what exactly do you get here? Well, first up, underneath the truck, however much you can see or not, you get locking front and rear differentials. That is very nice to have. Those have 4.7:1 final drive ratio. You also get these 35-inch tires here. These are a Goodyear mud terrain tire on a 17-inch beadlock capable wheel. The wheels themselves, these are not beadlocks right now. Ford says these same wheels are beadlock capable, and this is a 315/70 17-inch Goodyear mud terrain tire. We'll get into how that feels a little bit later on. You also get some Bilstein dampers. You can see those somewhere in here. You get some Bilsteins. And these are called position-sensitive dampers, and those give you less damping control with small road inputs, so you can kind of float on rough surfaces, and then they give you more control at the ends of the shock travel to soak up those big bumps. So Ford says this is the one to get if you're going to be off-roading at higher speeds, at least for now until that Raptor comes out. Now, beyond the Sasquatch package, the Wildtrak also gets you a few other things here, and that is automatic 4x4, so you don't just have high and low, you've got a 4x4 auto mode. You also get auxiliary switches with accessory wiring. You get the hardtop, which you can see I've mostly got removed right now, and then you get these fender flares. So these guys right here. If we move around to the back, this one does have the tow hitch installed. These vehicles are all relatively soft. The most you're ever gonna tow with one of these Broncos is 3,500 pounds, but the actual weight that they are rated to pull is different per Bronco and per trim and per everything. This one is rated for something like 3,000 pounds. I don't know how much you want to really actually pull with these. Now, of course, we have to talk about angles. That matters a lot when you are off-roading, and the angles of this particular Bronco Wildtrak with the four-door, you've got a 43.2 degree approach angle, which is here up front. Your breakover is 26.3 degrees here in the middle, and your departure angle out back is going to be 37 degrees. So those are your angles. Obviously, your breakover in particular will be a little bit more improved if you have the two-door because it's a shorter vehicle, so you have less to consider beaching it on. As far as ground clearance, though, that certainly helps quite a bit. The Bronco Wildtrak in particular it's got a couple more inches of ground clearance versus some of the other Bronco models. This has 11.5 inches of ground clearance. So you can see here underneath, there's a lot of room under here. And that is also good for nearly 3 feet of water fording, 33.5 inches. So got a lot of capability built in. I think a lot of owners this will be more than enough for. We will be getting off-road with this to see how it goes. Obviously for street driving, this is just a way to feel like the king of the road. Let's take a look under the hood and then we'll take a look inside. So popping the hood here. Now I mentioned the Bronco can be had with two different drivetrains. If you get the Bronco Wildtrak, you must get this engine here. This is the 2.7 liter twin turbo V6. This was first seen in the Ford F-150. They still sell it there, and they have added that as the bigger of the two engine offerings for the Bronco. Now this engine is paired exclusively to Ford's 10-speed torque converter automatic, and it can be run on both regular and premium gas. So on regular gas, it makes 315 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. That is very healthy. If you run it on premium, you can have 330 horsepower and 415 pound-feet. So a little bit more, but again, given gas prices the way they are, you are probably just fine to run it on regular. Ford has designed it for that. If you want that 7-speed manual, you have to get the 2.3 liter instead. You cannot have this 2.7 paired to it, at least not right now. So that's what's under the hood here. Let's go ahead and hop inside and take a tour of the interior. All right, so moving to the interior, I've got the window down here. These are all half doors. That makes it actually easier. If you take the doors off, you can put these in bags and get them in the back of the Bronco. So when the windows are down, you have no frame, no pillar going on. Looking inside, the Wildtrak is only going to have this kind of two-tone seat going on. It's like a black and light brown, stone gray sort of color. These are some sort of leather ActiveX. It's I believe a faux leather going on here. Looking around inside otherwise, you've got your lighting controls here. You've got your lights on your mirrors. You can control your parking brake down here. There is a grab handle, which is kind of nice to have. Your entire set of controls for your turn signals and wipers is right here on the stalk. Looking further around inside, you've got a nice big screen for Sync 4. Go ahead and turn that on and see it. Giant screen there. You've got your controls up top for your locking differentials, for your trail turn assist, your stability control, and your hazards. Moving back down here, you've got real controls and dials for your sound system, your cameras, your auto start stop, and your climate control. So really love to see all of that, all these real buttons. You can use them with gloves. Again, really nice shifter here for the 10-speed, pretty traditional. It does have a manual mode, and your gear shifts up and down are there on the shifter itself. Right here is your four-wheel drive control. I mentioned the automatic four-wheel drive is controlled here. Automatic four-wheel drive is something you get as part of this Wildtrak trim, and then you've got your drive modes that you can control here with your GOAT mode, your goes over any terrain mode selector. Moving a little bit further back, Ford had to put all the controls here for your power windows and your power mirrors in the center, because if you take the doors off, you want to be able to control some of that, notably the mirrors. This is a very important, nice touch, because on a Jeep Wrangler, when you take the doors off, you lose the mirrors. In the case of the Ford, if you look here, the mirrors are actually attached to the windshield cowl. So these are going to stay installed when you take the doors off, and no big deal, you still have mirrors. So you can drive legally without buying any accessories. I mentioned the Wildtrak gets you the auxiliary switchgear. Those are right here. I don't know how well you can see this, but they are right here next to the mirror. You've got your toggles for your auxiliary switches. Sorry, the sun is coming in and not much I can do about that. Looking around to the back seat, you'll see I've got the roof off here, and you can see that there is a gigantic roof panel in the way, and that is because I took the back of the roof off as well. So Ford gives you two panels for the front here, and then one panel that covers the back seats. So this gigantic panel is not actually supposed to stay in the Bronco while you're driving full time. I just have nowhere to really leave it, but I took it out and it is sitting here. I do have the other panels here in this bag. These can be stored behind the back seats with the back seats raised, and they also have more bags for you to put your doors in, so everything can go kind of stacked back here behind the second row of seats. As for the second row seats, they are fairly spacious. They are fine for your friends, but we're here to talk about driving, so second row is comfortable enough. I'm not going to put it up because this is in the way right now. I will show you the very back of everything. This opens up just like a Jeep Wrangler does, in that this bottom tailgate piece swings out, and then that leaves the glass free to be swung open. And you can see pretty decent cargo room in here with everything folded down and removed. You could certainly bring you know, furniture and different things home. You can haul some stuff back here. This is useful sized, and the floor does go pretty flat, so you can load, you know, whatever you want in there. All right, and that is it for this quick walk around of the 2021/2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak. So let's get behind the wheel and see how this thing is to drive both on the road and off the road. All right, so of course we're going to be talking about how the Ford Bronco performs off-road. That's the one thing I didn't really get to do the first time I drove one of these, and obviously this one being one of the more off-road oriented trims, I'm very excited to get it off-road, but you do have to think about driving to and from the trails, and in a lot of people's cases, even if they buy the more off-road focused models of things like a Bronco, there's still going to be a daily driver for a lot of people, or at least a weekend driver where, you know, you want it to behave well enough on the road. And first of all, you'll notice, of course, things might be a little noisy here. You'll notice I've got no roof, and that's because I took it out this morning. I've been driving around for, I don't know, 100 miles or so today with no roof installed except that back clamshell, and it has been so fun. I love convertibles. If you are a convertible person, of course the Bronco is a great vehicle for you to consider. This roof is pretty easy to remove. The front two panels are two pieces, and then the panel over the back seats is one big piece. That one is a little unwieldy because it's so big, but it's not actually very heavy. It's just difficult. It'll be easier with two people, but one person with long arms can do it. But as far as how this drives, I've spent the day, you know, doing highway driving, doing some back roads driving, and you know, this one is one of the most off-road oriented versions of the Bronco, so it is focused on going far off-road. Biggest thing you're going to notice is the tires. They impact so much about how this Bronco Wildtrak rides and drives on the street. First off, it is soft. That's actually not a terrible thing, especially if you're driving on lousy road surfaces, because the ride quality stays pretty good. The shocks being designed to change their valving for low speed versus high speed and all that, again, really helps with your performance on the street. This is a really comfortable, smooth ride on paved roads, even when they get a little nasty. So I like that. What I like less is just the fact that I'm driving around on 35-inch mud terrain tires, which, if you're picking the Wildtrak, you know, or any of these with the Sasquatch package, like, this is what you chose. So, you know, like it or not, they're noisier than a lot of other tires would be. They contribute to things being very soft. The Bronco Wildtrak in particular, or I think any of these with the Sasquatch package and these tires, not big fans of corners. That should come as no surprise to anyone, but the tires really, the limits are low. You cannot take an off-ramp, you know, at faster than the posted limit. You can exceed it by a teeny bit, but they're not happy. And then the suspension being really soft on top of that, you need to be cognizant of what you're doing on the street. And then, you know, with this being a couple inches higher off the ground than a lot of the Broncos, and the way it rides and everything, you get a little bit of vibration going on from the tires at certain highway speeds. I am not super comfortable going above like 70, 75 in this. I think if this were one on highway tires that rode a little bit lower, I'd feel better about it. All that said, the Bronco Wildtrak is way better behaved than the Wrangler on the highway at these sorts of speeds. I'm doing 60, 65 right now, and everything is a lot easier. You'll notice I've just got one hand on the steering wheel, and I'm not going back and forth a lot. With all of the Wranglers I've driven, one of the biggest complaints I have with all of those is the steering on center, there's some slop to it, and you have to keep correcting just teeny little bits left and right to go in a straight line, and it gets worse the faster you go. And Ford has completely dialed that out. This is one hand, just so easy to cruise down the highway. So even if you've got the most off-road oriented version of it, at the very least they've got the steering dialed in to where it's relatively relaxing. Stability wise it's there. You have to be careful with your speed. You know, your center of gravity is a little higher with this riding higher, that sort of stuff. As far as other bits, like I said, the roof has been out all day. The seat heaters in this are incredible. They will almost burn you, but not entirely. But very, very good heated seats. This one has a heated steering wheel as well. So I've been comfortable all day. You know, windows up, roof off. That's been pretty easy. Drop the windows if I'm not trying to talk to a camera. but very comfy as far as climate control is concerned, and you know, the cabin ambiance. I think comfort overall is also pretty good. The seats, the front seats in here, and the driving position, I would say it's fine. I wouldn't say it's perfect for someone my height, but again, compared to the Wrangler, I think the ergonomics and everything are just a touch better, and the cabin feels a little bit more cohesive to me. I really like how they've got everything, you know, easy reach from where you are. You're generally able to see all the controls, lots of hard buttons everywhere instead of touch screen, even though you still have this giant touch screen here in the center of the dash for your infotainment and all of your, you know, camera views and everything. Also love the fact that the camera views can be so large. We'll get to more of that in the off-road portion of this. But as far as general driver comfort, I like it quite a bit for what it is. Is this going to be as comfortable as an Expedition, an F-150, an Explorer? No, but that's not really the point. But for what it is, I think it's generally pretty comfy. I would be happy enough to drive this long distances because it's not wearing me out like I thought it might, and I really enjoy that. As far as power on the street, this is, like I said, the 2.7 liter. This is pulled from the F-150. These motors are known for being relatively reliable, and I think in the F-150 it feels pretty spunky and pretty fun. The way they've got it tuned in this case, the transmission seems to shift a little bit harsher. The motor, I would say it doesn't feel quite as spunky, but it's plenty of power, plenty of torque. You can run it on regular. Like I mentioned, you get a little bit more power and torque on premium, but it's not that much. And given gas prices today, right now, when I'm filming this, if you don't need the extra power and torque, you're still doing just fine with what it produces on regular. It is more than enough to move this with authority, and I like the fact that you don't have to wind it out. It makes nice low-end torque, you know, right off idle. And generally, for most driving, you don't have to rev it beyond 3,500, 4,000 unless you really are, you know, standing on it down an on-ramp or something. But feels good, sounds good, power delivery is nice, makes nice power, you know, all the way toward the red line, so it's not falling off as the turbo, you know, runs out of juice. But you put your foot down and it moves well enough for what it is. It's not going to be crazy fast. You know, maybe they'll do more of that with a different Bronco, but I think the 2.3 is the more sprightly, fun, cheeky motor. This one is the more down to business, let's just have the power and torque. I do think they're both good options, though. I like how Ford has paired both of them as drivetrain possibilities. One thing I don't love, these pillars, your A pillars here, they have airbags. You've got a lot of airbags going on, and I love the fact that Ford got this all crash certified in 2022 with a roof that comes off and doors that come off and all that good stuff. Of course, concessions have to be made. These pillars are gigantic. I lost a Volvo in one earlier, so you have to be careful. You know, if you're trying to look through a turn in particular, you do have to watch, you know, keep an eye out, because it is possible to lose a car in these pillars. But again, styling design concessions had to be made to have no roof above my head and doors that unbolt and can be thrown in the back of the car. All right, and so with that, let's head to the off-road trail. We're going to the hardest trail in the state of Virginia that is near my house, which is not very close and not very hard. However, it will be the best test of the Bronco that I can get to in a reasonable day's driving distance. So let's head over there to Peters Mill Run, and let's get this thing dirty. Let's see how it does. We chose to enter Peters Mill Run from the south, and that entrance will send you pretty much straight uphill for a while. I engaged 4 high, and away we went. Like I said earlier, this is not the hardest trail in the world, not by a long shot, and you really don't need low range either, unless you really want it for some downhill control. But I did appreciate having the rear diff locker available to me, and the fact that its control button is easily accessible at the top of the dashboard. As we continued on, I also started to appreciate the front-facing camera for all of these steep climbs. Despite finding the Sync 4 screen a bit large for day-to-day driving, it was actually a perk here, and the camera stayed on up to a reasonable speed. Now, continuing on, we tried an obstacle that usually requires a lift and some big tires, although this Wildtrak already has those things, so it made easy work of this whole obstacle and the big breakover that you need. You can thank the tires, nearly a full foot of ground clearance, and of course those approach, breakover, and departure angles for making this so easy. Now the rest of the trail was relatively simple, and it's pretty rocky. That's the biggest challenge. The tires with their really strong sidewalls gave me confidence in difficult spots, and beyond that, this was all just a walk in the park for the Bronco, which honestly was exactly what I expected out of a purpose-built off-road vehicle like this. And then of course, is it even an off-road day if you don't sling some mud around before you leave? Again, not the biggest mud puddle, but it was something. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2021/2022 Ford Bronco Wildtrak. Thank you so much for coming along. As always, please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Out Motorsports. And if you'd like to join a community of fellow LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors, head on over to outmotorsports.com. We would love to have you join us over there. Until next time, please stay safe, be well. We'll see you for the next one.